Hi, budding structural engineers. Welcome to the structural engineering lectures and welcome to Limited State Design of Steel Structures, conforming to IS 800 2007, the Limited State Code for the steel structures. Right? Whereas in the previous class, we have seen the wind loads acting on the structures and buildings, conforming to IS 875, Part 3. Now, in today's class, we shall see the earthquake loads and earthquake resistant design of structures, conforming to IS 1893, Part 1, 2016. Part 1 deals with the general provisions and buildings. Right now, next one. I hope, student, you are understanding these discussions. Now we are there in IS 1893, IS 1893, Part 1, 2016, the latest code, latest earthquake code. Right now, next subheading is the buildings. Right. Four main desirable attributes of an earthquake resistant buildings are robust structural configurations, at least minimum elastic lateral stiffness, and at least a minimum lateral strength, and the last one is adequate ductility. Now let us see the next subheading as regular and irregular configurations. A building shall be considered to be regular for the purpose of this standard, even if any one of the conditions given in table 5 and 6 is applicable. Now let us see this table 5 definitions of the irregular plan and plan irregularities, and let us also see this figure 3, student, then you'll understand. Right, torsional irregularity, right, that is how you please see this. Right, a building is said to be torsionally irregular, right, irregular when the maximum maximum horizontal displacement of any floor in the direction of the lateral force at the end of the floor is more than 1.5 times its minimum horizontal displacement at far off end of the same floor in the direction. Right, and the next one is the natural period corresponding to the fundamental torsional mode of the oscillation is more than those of the first two translational modes. Right, this in x direction as well as in y direction. Right, translational modes along the each principal plan direction. The torsionally irregular buildings, when the ratio of the maximum horizontal displacement at one end and the minimum horizontal displacement at other end is now let us see this is in the range of 1.5 to 2, the building configuration shall be revised to ensure that the natural period of fundamental torsional mode of oscillation shall be smaller than those of the first two translational modes. Right, and the second one, three-dimensional dynamic analysis shall be adopted, and if at all that ratio is more than 2, the building configuration shall be revised. Now let us see this. The next discussion is re-entrant corners. Right, however, in the structural configuration, if at all it has a projection of size greater than 15% of the overall plan dimension, then that is what called a re-entrant corner. Now we'll see that schematically also. In buildings with re-entrant corners, the three-dimensional dynamic analysis must be adopted. Right, next one, floor slabs having excessive cutouts or openings. Right, in buildings with discontinuity in their in plane stiffness. Right, like this. Right, in plane stiffness, if area of the geometric cutouts, this one, right, if the area of the geometric cutouts is less than or equal to 50% of the floor slab, shall be taken as rigid or flexible depending on the location of the size of the opening. If at all this is more than 50%, then the floor slab shall be taken as flexible. Right, that is how the openings and cutouts in the slabs. Right, next one, out of plane offset in vertical elements. In buildings with out of plane offsets in vertical elements, right, the specialist literature shall be referred for designs of such buildings if the building is located in seismic zone 2. Right, whereas if the building is located in zones 3, 4, 5, then lateral drift shall be less than 0.2% in the story having the effects the having offset and in the stories below. Right, the second one is specialist literature shall be referred for removing the irregularity arising due to these out of plane offsets in the vertical elements. Next one is non-parallel lateral force resisting system, means a building is said to be having a non-parallel parallel systems, when the vertically oriented structural system resisting lateral forces are not oriented along two principal orthogonal axes in the plan, right? However, these should also be analyzed for the load combinations as specified in codal specification 6322 or 6341 that we already discussed in the previous subheading, right? Now let us see this with respect to this figure 3 student, right? All these are now shown. The first one is torsional irregularity, therefore there is a delta min to delta maximum, right? If at all this delta maximum is greater than 1.5 times the delta min, then that is what called torsional irregularity. Whereas the next one, reentrant corners, right, means if this dimension is equal to L, and if you have an offset given by A, and if that A by L ratio is greater than 0.15, then that's what called reentrant corner, right? This comes under the definition of irregular buildings, right? Plan irregularities. All these are what called the plan irregularities, right? The torsional irregularity and reentrant corners, plan irregularities. And next one is floor slabs having excessive cutouts and openings. Just now I already shown like this, right? Openings located anywhere in the slab, right? A naught and that of the total area. If this A naught is greater than 50% of this total area, then also, otherwise if openings located along any edge of the slab, right, A naught, if at all that is the case, any edge, then if A naught is greater than 10% of this A total, then also there is what called the plan irregularity, right? And next one, out of plane offsets in vertical element. Now you can see that, right, you do have this vertical element, but there is an offset in this vertical element, right? Therefore there is offsets are there in this vertical elements, right? Then also it is called the plan irregularity, right? Plan irregularity. Or next one is non-parallel lateral force resisting system. Now you can see actually these are not there in purely along the orthogonal direction, right? This is x and the y direction, student, right? However, if they are there perfectly at 90 degree, like this, right, perfectly at 90 degree, then they are what called orthogonal to each other, right? However, if they are not at 90 degree, now like this, right, then in such a case, then also the plan irregularity will be there, right? Even with shear walls or without shear walls. Then also the first one is this non-parallel lateral force resisting system. The first one is movement frame building system, and the second one is movement frame building with structural walls, right? Now that is how all the definitions of the irregular buildings with plan irregularities from this figure. Now let us move to the table 6, which defines the irregular buildings vertical irregularities as per this figure 4, right? Stiffness irregularity or staff stories, right? A staff story is a story whose lateral stiffness is less than that of the story above, right? Now next one is the structural plan density, SPD. If at all that structural plan density of masonry infill exceeds 20%, the effect of the unreinforced masonry infills shall be considered by explicitly modeling the same in the structural analysis as per this class 7.9. The design forces for RC members shall be larger of that obtained from the analysis of bare frame or frames with the URM infills using 3D modeling, right? 3D modeling. And the inter story drifts shall be limited to 0.2% in the story with stiffening, and also in all the stories below, right? That is what the soft story. Next one is mass irregularity. Mass irregularity shall be considered when the seismic weight of any floor is more than 150% of that of the floors below, right? In buildings with mass irregularity located in zone 3, 4, 5, the earthquake effects shall be estimated using dynamic analysis method only, right? Now next one, vertical geometric irregularity shall be considered when the horizontal dimension of the lateral force resisting system in any story is more than 125% of the story below. Here also, if the building is located in zone 3, 4, 5, then we should do dynamic analysis for the structures, right? Not other analysis, right? Then next one is in-plane discontinuity in vertical elements resisting lateral forces, right? shall be considered when in-plan offset of the lateral force resisting elements is greater than 20% of the plan length of those elements. However, here also, if at all the building is located in zone 2, lateral drift of the building under the design lateral forces shall be limited to 0.2% of the building height. However, if at all the building is located in zone 3, 4, 5, with in-plan discontinuity shall not be permitted. Code will not permit, right? In-plan discontinuity for zone 3, 4, 5. Only it permits in zone 2, right? Just make a note of, right? Next one is strength irregularity or weak story. Means it is a story whose lateral strength is less than that of the story above. However, in such cases, the buildings located in seismic zones 3, 4, 5 shall be designed such that the safety of the building is not jeopardized, or provisions of class 7.10 shall be followed. Next one, floating or stub columns. Floating or stub columns, right? Such columns are likely to cause concentrated damage to the structure. Therefore, this feature is undesirable and hence should be prohibited if it is a part of the supporting the primary lateral load resisting system. That is how the floating or stub columns are not acceptable by this IS 1893 code. Now, next one is irregular modes of oscillations in two principal plan directions, right? A building is said to have lateral story irregularity in plan dimensions if the first three modes contributes less than 65% of the mass participation factor in each principal plane directions, right? The next one is the fundamental lateral natural periods of buildings in two principal plan directions are closer to each by 10%, right? Closer to each by 10%. Now let us see these with respect to this figure 4 student, right? So far we have seen in form of the definitions. This is of the figure 4 giving all the vertical irregularities, right? Definition of the irregular buildings, vertical irregularities. The first one is the 4A, stiffness irregularity and soft story, right? If at all the stiffness of K1 plus 1 K I plus 1th story, stiffness of this I plus 1th story is greater than that of the story above, or K I plus 1 K, stiffness of I plus 1th story is greater than that of the I, either below or above, then right, like this, either below or above, right, like this, right? Or right, even the column heights are of different heights, right? Or the columns are discontinued elsewhere, right? Therefore then also the change in stiffness, right? Or in between we do have the higher height columns in between these floors, right? All these comes under stiffness irregularity, generally the soft stories, right? All these fall under the category of soft stories, right? Now next one is mass irregularity, right? This is how that heavy mass, right, which is located either at the top story or in between stories, right? If at all this this weight, this heavy mass Wi is greater than 50% of that story above or below, right? That is how greater than 1.5 Wi plus 1 or Wi minus 1, then that is what called mass irregularity, right? The next definition is that of this vertical geometric irregularity. If I do have the offsets like this, right? Therefore, if these offsets A is greater than 25% of this base dimension L, then it is what called the vertical geometric irregularity. Or if this offset A on either side of this, let us say like this is a podium or this is just tower, right? On the tower, right? But all this podium is having more than 12.5% of this length, greater than 12.5% of this length on either side, then these podiums, right, with the towers are what referred to as geometric irregularities, vertical geometrical irregularities, right? And similarly the mirror image is also true, right? If I do have the offsets like this, right, offsets, right, this is A, this offset is A, right? Therefore if this offset A is greater than 10% of this base dimension L, then also it is what called the vertical geometric irregularity. And also if this L1 and L2, right? Therefore if this L2 right, is greater than 25% of this L1, 25% of this L1, then also this is what called the vertical geometrical irregularity, and as well as here, right, L1, L2 in either of the case, right. Then next one is that of the in-plane discontinuity in vertical elements resisting lateral forces. Now you please see that this is of the shear wall, right? However, that because of some other reason is discontinued here, right, in this, right, region. Therefore, if at all that length L0 is greater than 20% of this length of that shear wall LW, therefore then that is what referred to as in-plane discontinuity of this vertical wall or shear wall resisting lateral forces, right. Now next one is the strength irregularity or weak story, right. Now you can see that the stiffness of I plus 1th story is less than stiffness of that of the story above or that of the story below, right. That is yes indicates the stiffness, right, stiffness, right. That is right. These are of different heights, right. Here the column is discontinued, therefore there is a change in stiffness, and also here you please see that in between I do have the columns of different heights, right. Therefore there also the change in stiffness. That is how the strength, yes, for strength student, not stiffness, I'm sorry, right. Therefore the strength of the any floor is either less than that of the strength above that floor or that of the less than that of that below, right. SI that of less than SI plus 1 or SI plus 1 is less than that of the SI plus 2. Then also it is what referred to as the strength irregularity, right. Now coming to the top, the next discussions, right, is like this. We have seen these the irregularity student, right, irregularities. Now let us revisit. We have seen just now this figure 4 and all these definitions we have seen, right. Next one is lateral forces. After seeing these, right, let us go to the lateral forces students, right, where I do have the design lateral force given by VB is equal to AH multiplied by W. What is AH? Just now we already seen, but W is a seismic weight as defined in class 7.4. We'll see that, right. And minimum design lateral force, buildings and portions thereof shall be designed and constructed to resist at least the effects of the design lateral force as specified in 7.2.1, right, this one. VB is equal to AH multiplied by W, not less than that one. However, regardless of that design seismic earthquake forces arrived as per 7.3.1, building shall have lateral load resisting system capable of resisting a horizontal force not less than VB minimum given in this table 7, right. However, not less than this VB minimum given in this table 7. Now we'll say that table 7, right. Now let's move to the next discussion, student. I hope you are understanding this discussion. That is of the table 7, minimum design seismic minimum design earthquake horizontal lateral force for building, right. For zone seismic zone 2, right, 70%, right. Zone 3 1.1 means more, right. Zone 4 60% more actually, right. For zone 5, right, 2.4, right, 240% more, whereas for zone 3 it is 110% more, whereas for zone 2 it is just 70%, right. Now there is all. Next one is the importance factor notated by I, right. The importance factors I, important service buildings and community buildings and structures, right. You just go through these, what are all these examples, right. The example for this one is the government building, school building, right, signature building, monumental building, etc., right, or hospitals, emergency buildings, right. For all such buildings we do have the importance factor given by 1.5. Next one is residential and commercial buildings that are not covered in the above definition, right. There you use importance factor of 1.2, where the occupancy is more than 200 persons, right. However, if the occupancy is less than 200% or all other buildings, then importance factor is equal to 1. Now that is how the importance factor. Next one is the damping ratio. However, by default the damping value shall be taken as 5%, of the critical damping for the purpose of the estimating AH in the design lateral force VB of the building as per this class 7.2.1, right, irrespective of the material of construction. Irrespective of the material of the construction. Now, next one, design acceleration spectrum, right? However, the design acceleration coefficient SI by G corresponding to 5% of the damping shall be considered as given in class 6.4.2, right? Next one, response reduction factor notated by R. This response reduction factor R for different building systems shall be as given in this table 9. Now we'll see that table 9, right? Now let us see this table 9 student, right? This is our table 9 response reduction factors for different buildings, right? Movement, the lateral load resisting system, right? Movement frame systems, right? Now let us see example is RC building with ordinary movement resisting frame, RC OMRF, right? Response reduction factor is 3, right? Like that RC SMRF, right? A value of 5, right? Steel building, steel OMRF 3, right? Steel SMRF, right? 5. Like that. Second one is braced frame system, right? Ordinary braced frame 4, right? Whereas special braced frame SBF 4.5, right? Building with special braced frame SBF 5. Structural wall systems, right? The load bearing masonry walls, right? Unreinforced masonry, right? Wall systems, then 1.5. Unreinforced masonry with horizontal RC seismic bands 2, right? Whereas unreinforced masonry with horizontal seismic bands as well as vertical reinforcement bars, then 2.5, right? As well as the reinforcement masonry as per this class SP7, then 3, right? Confined masonry 3. Building with ordinary RC structural walls 3, right? Building with ductile RC structural walls 4. Dual systems, building with ordinary RC wall and RC OMRF 3, right? Building with ordinary RC wall and RC SMRF 4. Building with ductile RC structural walls and RC OMRF 4, right? And building with ductile RC structural wall and RC SMRF 5, right? The next one is flat slab structural wall systems, right? Then for such all systems, the value shall be taken as 3. This is how the different values of the response reduction factor R for the different types of the buildings, right? Once we see this, now let us move to the next heading is the dual systems. I hope you are understanding these discussions, right? The buildings with the dual system consists of movement resisting frames and structural walls of movement resisting frames and bracings such that both of the following conditions are valid, right? 1. Two systems are designed to resist a total design lateral force in proportion to their lateral stiffness, and the movement resisting frames are designed to resist independently at least 25% of the design base shear, right? That is how they are what referred as dual systems, right? In the starting of the discussions, I already shown what is a dual system, right? Like this dual system, right? This is how that dual system student, right? Frame shear truss, right? This is what called the dual system, right? Then next one, design imposed loads for earthquake force calculations. How they need to be calculated? Now, course says that the design seismic force shall be estimated using full dead load plus the percentage of the imposed load as given in this table 10. Now let us see this table 10, right? However, for calculation of design forces of the buildings, imposed load on the roof need not be considered. For weights of equipments and other permanent fixed facilities should be considered. Now, however, in such cases, the reductions of the imposed loads mentioned in table 10 are not applicable to that part of that load. Right? Now let us say this table 10, which indicates the percentage of imposed loads to be considered for the calculation of the seismic weight. Now, imposed load, uniformity distributed floor loads at up to and including 3 kilonewton per meter square. Then percentage of the imposed load shall be taken as 25%. If at all it is more than 3 kilonewton per meter square, only 50% load, 50% of the load shall be considered. Right? Now, next one is the imposed load values indicated in table 10 for calculating the design earthquake forces are applicable to normal conditions only. However, When the loads during the earthquakes are not accurately assessed, designers may alter or they can change the imposed load values indicated, or even they can replace entire imposed loads given in table 10 with actual assessed values of this imposed load subjected to the values given in 7 or not less than this 7, as we have already seen what is that in table 7, right? That is all. Now next one. However, in regions of severe snowfalls and sandstorms exceeding intensity 1.5 km per meter square, 20% of the uniform design snow load and sand load respectively shall be included in the estimation of the seismic weights. However, the minimum values of the seismic weights corresponding to these loads, the load effects given in IS 875 are larger. The higher values shall be used. Higher values shall be used. Now, next one. The weights of these partitions on floors shall be included in estimation of seismic weights. This value shall not be less than 0.5. If at all we do have the interior partitions, then a value shall be taken as 0.5 km per meter square, right? Then, however, if higher values are arrived at, then those higher values shall be used. However, not less than 0.5 km per meter square. Now, next discussion is seismic weight. I hope students you are understanding these discussions, right? Seismic weight of floors is its full dead load plus appropriate amount of imposed load. Just now we have seen how much of either 25% or 50%, right? Next one is equivalent static method, right? In such a case, this method shall be applicable for regular buildings with height less than 15 meters for seismic zones 2. Then only this equivalent static method shall be used. Please make a note of student, right? You cannot use for more than 15 meters even in zone 2 equivalent static method, right? The design base shear VB along any principal direction of building, VB is equal to H multiplied by W, where H is the seismic horizontal acceleration coefficient. Just now we have seen, or W is the seismic weight of the building as per this class 7.4. However, the approximate fundamental translational natural time periods of oscillation TA in seconds shall be estimated as given here, right? For bare moment resisting frames without any masonry infills, TA is equal to 0.075 H to the power 7.75. For RC MRF buildings, it is equal to 0.08 H to the power 0.75. For RC steel composite moment resisting frame buildings, it is equal to 0.085 H to the power 0.75 for steel moment resisting frame buildings, right? Whereas H is the height of the building in meters, right? Next one is buildings with reinforced concrete structural walls. Then this time period TA is equal to 0.075 H to the power 0.75, that divided by square root of AW, where AW it should be greater than or equal to 0.09 H divided by square root of D, where AW is the total effective area of the walls in first story of the building. Given by this, AW is equal to summation of I is equal to 1 to NW, that multiplied by AWI into 0.2 plus LWI divided by H whole square, right? Where H is the height of the building and AWI is the effective cross-sectional area of the wall I in the first story of the building in meter square, and LWI is the length of the structural wall I in the first story of the building considered lateral force direction in meters, and D is the base dimension of the building at the plinth level along the directions of the earthquake shaking in meters, and NW is the number of walls in the considered direction of the earthquake shaking. However, this value of LW by H in this formula shall not exceed 0.9, whereas this time period for all other buildings other than these, TA is equal to 0.09 H divided by square root of D, where D is the base dimension, right? And next one, the vertical distribution of the shear to different floor levels, how it should be done, right? Now let us see this definitions of the heights and base width of the building student before we see the discussion as per this figure 5, right? That is how the right, this is what called the height, right? Above this right, actually these are the basement floors which are resting on the deep excavations, right? Maybe 2 to 3 stories deep, right? Above that, below that natural ground level. Then if these members are not connected to the if this podium is not connected to the ground, then height should be measured from the uh, bottom of that basement itself, and the dimension d is this dimension, right? That is how h and d, right? Whereas if I do have the lateral resisting systems in the form of, say, shear walls and others, then the height of the building should be measured above that natural ground level. VB should be calculated over this height. VB should be calculated over this height, not on this, right? And next, similarly here, if the podium, and this is the tower part actually, right? This is the tower part, right? If the tower is connected with that of the podium, right? Therefore that VB should be calculated for this tower part of H above that ground level or above that podium level, right? Similarly, this is that base dimension D, right? And this is the height of the tower. However, here now the height H shall be considered as weighted heights with respect to the areas. Summation of I is equal to 1 to n ai hi divided by summation of ai's I is equal to 1 to n. This is what called the weighted mean H. This is how the base dimension D and H, right? Because this is what called the step back building, student, right? Stepped buildings, right? Where height above that at one end is equal to H, right? Whereas at the other end it is more actually. But the code says that this should be taken as the H, and this base dimension is starting from this leg to this column. This is what called the D, right? These are the definitions of the heights and base width as per this, right? Now, once we see this discussion, student, how the vertical distribution of the base shear to the different floor levels should be done is given as indicated in this figure, is given by QI is equal to summation of, QI is equal to WHI square divided by summation of QI HI squares, where I is equal to 1 to n. That there is a factor multiplied by VB, right? VB, right? Where Q is the design lateral force at floor I, and W is the seismic weight of that floor I, and H is the height of the floor I measured from the base, and N is the number of stories in the building, right? Or number of masses that are considered, right? Now next one is diaphragms, right? Now the code says that, right, a floor diaphragm shall be considered to be flexible if it deforms in such a fashion that the maximum lateral displacement measured from the this chord of the deformed shape at any point of the diaphragm is more than 1.2 times the average displacement of the entire diaphragm. Now I'm showing that schematically here, right? Therefore there is our delta 1 and this is our delta 2. Now you just take the average of these two, delta 1 plus delta 2 divided by 2. If at the middle with respect to the chord, right, if that delta middle is greater than 1.2 times this average actually, right? Therefore then that is what referred to as a flexible diaphragm. Otherwise this is what called a rigid diaphragm. That is how the definition of a flexible diaphragm, student, right? And also usually the reinforced concrete monolithic slab beam floors are those consisting of prefabricated or precast elements with reasonable reinforced screed concrete, at least a minimum of 50 mm on floors and 75 mm on roofs, with at least a minimum reinforcement of 6 mm bar spaced at 150 mm centers as topping, and plan aspect ratio less than 3 can be considered to be providing rigid frame action, right? That is how the rigid frame action. Otherwise that is defined to be a flexible diaphragm, right? Now next one is dynamic analysis method, when it should be used. I hope, student, you are understanding these discussions, right? Then a linear dynamic analysis shall be performed to obtain the lateral forces for all the buildings other than regular buildings lower than 15 meters in seismic zone 2, right? Then this is already reiterated, right? Then the dynamic analysis may be performed by either the time history analysis or response spectrum method. When either of these methods is used, the design base shear VB estimated shall not be less than the design base shear VB prime calculated using the fundamental time period TA, where TA is defined in class 7.6.2. When VB is less than VB bar for force response quantities shall be then this force response quantity shall be multiplied by VB bar by VB for earthquake shaking considered in the along two mutually perpendicular plan directions x and y. Separate multiplying factor shall be calculated, namely VBX bar divided by VBX and VBY bar divided by VBY respectively, as well as along the vertical direction the multiplying factor shall be taken as maximum of VBX by VBX bar by VBX and VBY bar by VBY. Out of these two, whichever is maximum shall be considered in the vertical Z direction. Vertical Z direction. This is how in the vertical Z direction, student. Right now, next one. Time history method. Time history method shall be based on appropriate ground motion, preferably compatible with the design acceleration spectrum in the desired range of natural periods. And the next one is a response spectrum method may be performed for any building using the design acceleration spectrum defined in class 6.4.2 or by a size specific design acceleration spectrum as defined in class 6.7.4, right? 6.7.4, right? Now, next one is natural modes of oscillations. Natural modes of oscillations, right? Undamped free vibration analysis of the entire building shall be performed as per established methods of structural dynamics using appropriate mass and elastic stiffness of structural systems to obtain natural periods Tk and mode shapes pi k of its nm modes of oscillations. Right now, next one is number of modes to be considered. Right, should be such that the sum of the total modal mass of these modes considered is at least 90% of the total seismic mass. 90% of the total seismic mass. Right. Then next one. If modes with the natural frequencies beyond 33 Hz are to be considered, the modal combination shall be carried out only for modes with natural frequency less than 33 Hz only. The effects of the mode with natural frequencies more than 33 Hz shall be included in the missing mass correction procedure following established principles of structural dynamics. Right? If justifiable by rigorous analysis, the designers may use a cutoff frequency other than 33 Hz. Right? Now, next one. Combination of modes. Right? It can be combined by one or the two methods given below. One is peak response quantities may be combined as per this complete quadratic combination notated by CQC method. Given by this, lambda is equal to square root of summation over I is equal to 1 to nm summation over j is equal to 1 to nm lambda I rho ij lambda j, where lambda is estimate of peak response quantity and lambda I is the response quantity in ith mode with appropriate sign, and lambda j is the response quantity of jth mode with appropriate sign, and rho ij is a cross modal correlation coefficient given by this 8 zeta square multiplied by 1 plus beta multiplied by beta to the power 1.5 divided by 1 minus beta square whole square plus 4 zeta square multiplied by beta 1 plus beta whole square, where nm is the number of modes considered and zeta is modal damping coefficient ratio, which shall be taken as 0.05, 5% damping only, right, by default, right, and beta is a natural frequency ratio defined by Wj divided by Wi, where Wj is a circular frequency in jth mode and Wi is a circular frequency in ith mode, right. Now, alternatively, the peak response quantities may be combined like this also. If building does not have closely spaced modes, then net peak response quantity is lambda due to all these modes considered shall be estimated. Given by this, lambda is equal to square root of k is equal to 1 to nm lambda k whole square, where lambda k is the peak response quantity of the kth mode and nm is the number of modes considered. And if a building has a few closely spaced modes, then net peak response quantity is lambda star due to these closely spaced modes alone shall be considered as lambda star is equal to summation over all such closed this one lambda c, indicating peak response quantities of closely spaced modes C, right. Then next one is simplified method of dynamic analysis of the buildings, right. However, now the regular buildings, the Regulated buildings may be analyzed as a system of masses lumped at floor levels with each mass having 1 degree of freedom, that of lateral displacement in each direction under consideration. Then what is the modal mass? Mk of mode k is given by Mk is equal to summation over all such I is equal to 1 to n Wi pi I k whole square, that divided by G summation over I is equal to 1 to n Wi pi I k whole square. That ratio is equal to modal mass, right, where G is acceleration due to gravity and pi I k is a mode shape coefficient at floor I in mode k, right, whereas W is the seismic weight of that ith floor of the structure and n is the number of floors of the structure, right. Next one is modal participation factor, notated by Pk of mode k. Pk is equal to summation over I is equal to 1 to n Wi pi I k divided by summation over I is equal to 1 to n Wi pi I k whole square. And next one is design lateral force at each floor in each mode. Peak lateral force pi I k at floor in mode k is given by this pi I k is equal to ak pi I k multiplied by pk multiplied by wi, where ak is a design horizontal acceleration spectrum value as specified in class 6.4.2 using natural time periods tk of the mode k obtained from the dynamic analysis. Now next one, story shear forces in each mode. Peak story shear force Vik acting in story I in mode k is given by Vik is equal to summation j is equal to I plus 1 to n q I k. Story shear force due to all modes considered. Story shear Vi in story I due to all modes considered shall be obtained by combining those due to each mode in accordance with class 7.5.3, right. The next one is lateral forces at each story due to all modes considered. The desired lateral forces F roof at roof levels and Fi at level of floor I shall be obtained as F roof is equal to V roof and Fi is equal to Vi minus Vi plus 1, right. I hope student you are understanding these discussions. Next one is the torsions, right. We are there in IS 1893 2016 IS 1893 part 1 2016, the latest code of the earthquake or seismic load code, right. Next one is the torsion. Provision shall be made in all the buildings for increase in shear forces and increase in shear forces on the lateral force resisting the elements resulting from twisting about the vertical axis, like this, right, about this vertical axis of the building arising due to eccentricity between the center of mass and center of resistance at the floor levels, right? The design forces calculated as in class 7.6 and 7.7.5 shall be applied at the displaced center of mass so as to cause design eccentricity as given in class 7.8.2 between the displaced center of mass and center of resistance, right. Now next one is design eccentricity. By performing the structural analysis by the seismic coefficient method or response spectrum method, the design eccentricity EDI to be used in floor I shall be taken like this. EDI is given by 1.5 ESI plus 0.05 BI or is equal to ESI minus 0.05 BI, whichever is more, right, whichever is more. However, here this ESI is a static eccentricity at floor I, which is defined as the distance between the center of mass and the center of resistance, and BI is the floor plan dimension of floor I perpendicular to direction of the force, right, perpendicular to the direction of this force, like this, right, perpendicular direction of this force, right. However, the factor 1.5 represent dynamic amplification factor and 0.05 B represent the extent of accidental eccentricity. However, in the above formula, this amplification factor of 1.5 need not be used when you are performing the structural analysis by time history method. Next one, the RC frame building with unreinforced masonry infills, right, in RC buildings with movement resisting frames, the unreinforced masonry URM infill walls Variation of the story stiffness and story strength shall be examined along the height of the building, considering in-plane stiffness and strength of URM infill walls. Right now, next one. The modulus of elasticity EM in megapascals of the masonry infill walls shall be taken as EM is equal to 550 FM. Next one, where FM is the compressive strength of masonry prism in megapascals as per this IS 1905, and it is given by FM is equal to 0.433 FB to the power 0.64 FMO to the power 0.36, where FB is the compressive strength of the brick in megapascals and FMO is the compressive strength of that mortar. M means for mortar in megapascals. However, that URM infill walls shall be modeled by taking like this, right? If at all this URM infill wall is there, that shall be modeled using the equivalent diagonal strut like this. Equivalent diagonal strut like this. This unreinforced masonry infill wall shall be designed as this diagonal strut, equivalent diagonal strut. When, right, as follows: ends of the diagonal struts shall be considered to be pin jointed to RC frame. The second one is the URM infill walls without any opening with WDS of equivalent diagonal strut. See this figure 7 shall be taken as WDS is equal to 0.175 alpha H to the power minus 0.4 multiplied by LDS, where alpha H is equal to, given by this expression, H multiplied by fourth root of EMT sine 2 theta divided by 4 EFICH, right? That is how alpha, right? Then where this EM and EF are the moduli of elasticity of the material of URM infill as well as that of the RC movement resisting frame, and IC is the movement of inertia of the adjoining columns, and T is the thickness of the infill wall, and theta is the angle of the diagonal strut with the horizontal, right? And next one, now we'll see schematically also. For URM infill walls with opening, no reduction in strut width is required. No reduction in the strut width is required, right? And the thickness of this equivalent diagonal strut, shall be taken as the thickness T of the original URM infill wall, provided H by T less than 12 and L by T less than 12, right? What is H is this height between the floor to floor and between the floor to floor H, right? And L means between the column to column, right? This is what called L, right? These are what L by T. T is the thickness, and H by, this is H by T, right? If H by T is less than 12 and L by T less than 12, then that thickness of the equivalent diagonal strut shall be taken as the thickness of the original URM infill wall only. Otherwise, it should not be considered, right? I hope you are understanding these discussions. This is what that figure equivalent diagonal strut of URM infill walls. Next one is RC frame buildings with open stories, right? The RC movement resisting frame buildings which have open stories at any level, such as due to discontinuation of URM infill walls of the structural walls, are known to have flexible or weak stories as per this table 6. In such buildings, suitable measures shall be adopted which increase both stiffness and strength to be required to the required level in open story and story belows, right? However, these measures shall be taken along both the plan directions as per this requirements class 7.10.2 and 7.10.4. The said increase may be achieved by providing measures like RC structural walls as well as the braced frames in select base of buildings, right? However, when the RC reinforced concrete structural walls are provided, they shall be founded on properly designed foundations. They should be coupled, they should be connected to the foundations like this, right? And the next one is the continuous, preferably over the full height of the building. They should be not breaking in between, they should be continuous through and through. And next, third one is connected preferably to the movement resisting frame of the building. Movement resisting frame of the building. Next one. When the RC structural walls are provided, they shall be designed such that the buildings does not have additional torsional irregularity in plan than that are already presented in the building. Lateral stiffness in the open stories is less than 80% of that of the story above, or lateral strength in the open stories is less than 90% of that of the stories above. Right now, next one is when RC structural walls are provided, the RC structural wall plan density notated by rho SW of the building shall be at least 2% along each principal direction, right? Like this. That of this in plan, these should be at least 2% in each principal direction in seismic zones 3, 4, 5. These walls shall be well distributed in plan of the building along each plan direction, right? Like this. Along each plan direction, like this, right? Then RC next one. RC structural walls in buildings located in seismic zones 3, 4, 5 shall be designed and detailed to comply with the requirements of ductility detailing IS 13920. Now, next one is deformations, right? Story deformation limitations. The story deformation in any story shall not exceed 0.004 times the story height, right? Now, next one. With the partial safety factor for all the loads taken as 1. You should not increase the load factors, right? Now, next one is displacement estimates obtained from dynamic analysis method shall not be scaled as given in class 7.7.3. And next one is deformation capabilities of non-seismic members. For members located in seismic zones 3, 4, 5, we shall be ensured that the structural components that are not part of the seismic force assisting system in considered direction of the ground motion but are monolithically connected do not lose their vertical load carrying capacity under induced net stress resultants, including additional bending moments and shear forces resulting from story deformations equal to R times the story displacements calculated as per this class 7.11.1, where R is specified in table 9. Right now, next one. Next one is separation between two units. Right? However, this should be considered. The two units should be considered separated by a distance equal to R times the sum of the story displacement delta I and delta 1 and delta 2 calculated as per class 7.11.1. However, of the buildings are two units of the same building to avoid pounding effects. Like this, right? Therefore, if two buildings are of the same height, right, if both are oscillating, right, they will be pounding like this, right? Therefore, that is in the same direction, right, out of plane, right, then they will be pounding like this, right? Therefore, this is what called the pounding, right, of the same heights, right? In order to avoid that, to avoid pounding, as two buildings are of two units of the same building oscillate towards each other, right? When floor levels of the adjacent units of the buildings are of the same level, the separation distance shall be calculated as R1 delta 1 plus R2 delta 2, where R1 and delta 1 correspond to building 1 and R2 delta 2 are corresponding to the building 2. And let us see the miscellaneous topics, students, that of the foundations. Isolated RC foundations without tie beams or unreinforced strip foundations shall not be adopted in buildings rested on soft soils with NPT value less than 10 in any seismic zone. Use of the foundations vulnerable to significant differential settlement due to ground shaking shall be avoided in buildings located in seismic zones 3, 4, 5. And the individual spread footings or pile footing shall be interconnected with the ties. Next one, right? And all the ties shall be capable of carrying. In tension and in compression. In tension and in compression, an axial force equal to H by 4 times the larger of the column or pile cap load, in addition to otherwise computed forces subjected to a minimum of 5% of the larger of the column or pile cap loads, right? That is how the foundations and their ties, how they should be designed. And next one is cantilever projections like this, right? Cantilever projections, right? Vertical projections, right? Vertical projections like this, right? Now, small sized facilities like the towers, tanks, parapets, smokestacks, chimneys, etc., right, shall be designed and checked for stability for 5 times the design horizontal seismic coefficient AH as specified in 6.4.2 for that building. However, in the analysis of the building, weights of these projection elements shall be lumped with the roof height, roof weights only, right? Now, next one is horizontal projections like this, right? All the horizontal projections of the buildings like cantilever structural members at porch level or higher are attached to the building like this, right? The brackets or cornices or balconies like this, right, shall be designed for 5 times the design vertical coefficient H as specified in class 6.4.6 for that building. However, um, uh, however, for the main building, they should not be not for the design of the main building. For the main building, only one times vertical coefficient should be considered, right? Whereas for the these horizontal projections, 5 times that AV should be considered, right? That is how the codal specification. Whereas for the compound walls, right, like this, for the compound walls shall be designed for design horizontal seismic coefficient AH of 1.25 multiplied by Z. That is, AH is calculated using 6.4.2 with I is equal to 1, R is equal to 1, and SA by G is equal to 2.5. Therefore, now I'll get AH is equal to 1.25 Z, right? And connections between the parts, right? However, all these connections between the parts should be capable of the transmitting the forces induced in them, but not less than 5.05 means 5%, 5.05 times weight of the total dead load and imposed load reactions, right. That is how the different codal specifications. Student, now this is what the map of India showing the epicenters of the past earthquakes in India, right? This is how lithological showing the epicenters that have occurred in the previous case, right, of the different magnitudes, right? 5 to less than 6, right? 6 to less than 6.5, 6.5 to less than 7, 7 to less than 7.5, 7.5 to less than 8, more than 8, right? Deep focus shocks, right? And number of shocks, right? That is how different locations, right? You can see that almost would have many such earthquakes occurring in Himalayan regions as well as that of the northeast states as well as that of the Gujarat Bhuj region, right? That is how, and this Andaman Nicobar Islands also, right? That is how all these are having many earthquakes in the past, right? Now, next one is map of the India showing the principal tectonic features in India, right? Where what type of tectonic feature is there? The example is Delhi foldings, right? Notated by this, right? And Satpura folding, so on and so forth, right? You may just see the different types of principal tectonic features are given in this figure, right? Now, next one is the map of the India showing the principal lithological groups, right? That is how the different principal lithological groups are shown. For example, the yellow is showing the alluvium type of lithology, right? This is how, right? All these are alluvium soils, right? The next one is a laterite, right? All these are the laterites, right? Laterites, and so on and so forth. Or sedimentary rocks, right? Sedimentary rocks, this one, right? Or volcanic rocks, right? Or the crystalline and metamorphic rocks, right? This one are crystalline metamorphic rocks, right? Like this, right? Where data is not available, that is shown with white color, right? These are the principal lithological groups of India, right? And next one is Annex D gives MSK 1964 intensity of the scale. Just you go through, students, I'll not discuss, right? You just go through on your own, right? And the next discussion is on the Annex E, list of some towns with the population more than 3 lakhs, right? And their seismic zone factors, right? Let us say, for example, Hyderabad, where it is located in zone 2, right? What is the zone factor? 0.1. Like that, you see, example, Agra, it is located in zone 3 with the zone factor of 0.16, so on and so forth, up to in the alphabetical order A, B, C, D, E, so on and so forth, up to last one is Vishakhapatnam, located in zone 2 with 0.1, right? In between, if I say, let us say Surat, right, it is located in zone 3, 0.16, right? Now I'll see now Kohima, right? Kohima, right? It is located in zone 5, 0.36. There large intensity earthquakes are possible, right? Kohima earthquake, right? Even there is a famous earthquake, right? Therefore, we do have those, right? Now next one is Annex F, gives the simplified procedures for evaluation of liquefaction potentials, right? And next one is you just go through on your own. I'm not just going through for want of time, right? And Annex G is the giving the composition of the committee, right? That is how the different discussions we had in today's class, students, right? I hope, student, you understood the discussions what we had in today's class on earthquake and earthquake loads and earthquake resistant design of the structures conforming to IS 1893 Part 1 2016. Part 1 deals with general provisions and buildings, right? General provisions and buildings, right? I hope you understood this discussion set. If you like the discussions what we had in today's class, you just try to click like, share and subscribe to our YouTube channel, right? We'll meet with another discussion in the next class. Till then, bye bye, students, right?